OKGo is working on a VR project right now, and we'll have a lot more to say about new technology and the way this all works soon. But I want to just talk about, I feel like if we're talking about the future of storytelling or of communication, it really just comes down to how good our ideas are anyways. So obviously I can't show you all the videos, that would take hours, but to give you a sense of the sort of similarity of the types of ideas, here are some stills from a dance we did in zero gravity a couple of years ago, which was messy. And we built an obstacle course in the desert once out of thousands of instruments and then played them by stunt driving a car through them. And one of the more recent videos, we choreographed hundreds of people with umbrellas in this parking lot of an abandoned mall outside of Tokyo, and then we filmed them from a drone a half a mile in the sky. So it's the kind of origin of all of those ideas that I want to get to, and where does that come from? And the reason I can never really answer the question of how we think of those ideas is that it feels to me, it doesn't really feel like we think of them at all. It feels like we find them. To explain that, I think it's best through analogy. I have this compulsion. I play parallax games all the time. You guys are all kind of visual people, so you probably do the same thing. But I'm always trying to line up things in my eyes, and it's something I've done my whole life. But I think it probably really blossomed when I was a teenager, and I think this may be why. This was my high school bedroom, and look how sullen I am. I'm like such a little prick. But so it was the 90s, and so I spent all my time on the phone, and that means like I'm in that room for hours and hours. The ceiling looked like that too, by the way. I just don't have any photos. So being on the phone, I think I was just kind of overwhelmed by the intensity of that visual maelstrom, and I'd just shift my head off to the side a little bit, and I could get the edge of the desk to just line up with the edge of that poster on the opposite wall, or I could put my thumb up. I've even got examples for you here. I could put my thumb up, and then if I close your right eye and then your left eye, you can make the thumb bounce back and forth between Jimi Hendrix's right eye and his left eye. So this is something I still do. I can't actually stop myself from doing this, and it happens all the time, and I'm not even usually aware of it, because it's sort of the visual equivalent of just like doodling, you know. And like here, this is my wife, Kristen, and it's not uncommon that where we go out to dinner and we're having some great conversation and she just stops mid-sentence, and I realize it's only like when she stops that I realize that I'm the one who's being weird, and I'm bobbing and weaving. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that ficus back there to stick out of her head like a ponytail. The point of all this is that is for me what it feels like to have an idea. It's like they're made of these disparate chunks, right? They're all kind of floating out there, and if you are observant and you're receptive and you can move your head into just the right place, they just kind of like click into place, I think. And if it's your job to actually look for ideas like this, they beckon to you the way that Jimi Hendrix's eyes are beckoning from the wall, or that ficus from behind Kristen. So music writing is kind of always like this, and I think this is a fairly gut instinct for musicians, because no one really understands music, and no matter how well you understand theory or your instrument, it's always still kind of you've got this thing, and then you've got this one chord progression with this melody over it, and you're trying to find that puzzle piece on the other side, that last thing that clicks into the other side. And when you do find it, it doesn't feel like you thought up that puzzle piece. It feels like you found it. Like you've unlocked this set of relationships that was already there. So the name of the talk today, Wonderful Ideas, is because the band is usually looking for wonder in our videos. Wonder is our primary goal. We're trying to get people to feel this, like that sense when that piece unlocks on the other side. And there's always a component of surprise to wonder. So we're not just looking for good ideas, we're looking for ideas that surprise us somehow. And that actually is the real challenge, because there is there's a bias in our normal way of making things against surprising ideas. Like, well, the process I'm talking about is the one where you have an idea, something you want to do, and then with that in mind, you come up with this plan for how it might come to be. And with that plan in mind, you go back and you revisit the original idea and you tweak a little bit to make it a little more doable and a little more good. And then you bounce back and forth between your plan and your idea and your idea and your plan for a while until eventually you come up with a truly great plan. And then once you have that great plan, and only then do you go out and you execute. The thing is, this is where all your money is going to get spent. So this is a beautiful system for making stuff. It's really, and it's kind of the only system for making stuff for most people, because you got to be really ready by the time this happens. You can't waste these resources, and sitting at your desk is generally free. However, this does have an Achilles heel. This is the process that is so hard to get fresh ideas out of, and I will use some math to explain what I mean. That video, the Rube Goldberg, the chain reaction device video that you just watched, had about 130 physical interactions in it, 130 things that had to go according to our plan. So let's pretend that we are coming up with a new video now, and it's similarly complex, and we need to like plan out how we're going to get those 130 things to happen. If we're really good planners, perhaps we could get each one of those 130 things up to 90% reliability, which seems pretty good, right? Like, most things don't work 9 out of 10 times. So what would our chances be with that setup, right? 130 things, 90% of the time. This is the math. Anyone here can do that? That's 0.9 for 90% to the 130th power. And if you multiply that out, you get, bing, 0.0000001, which is 1/10,000th of a percent, or literally 1 in a million. So that's never going to happen. So let's then like make ourselves hypothetically into super planners, and we can, every one of those chunks, we can get up to 99% reliability. This is the math for that. 0.99 to the 130th power. And if you multiply that out, 0.27. This is like significantly more doable. Like, we could even do that. But think of what we're talking about here. That's do any of you have 130 things in your life that are 99% reliable? And if you did, could you actually gather them all into one place and work on one project together? And if you did all of those things, wouldn't you feel like you deserved for that thing to work? Because this still fails 3 times more often than it succeeds. So the upshot here is that we're all screwed. No, if you've got a significantly complex project, and basically everybody's project is, you are reduced, you're limited to only working with ideas that have been demonstrably proven over and over and over again. You're working with things that are 99% reliable or better. So if you go back to the metaphor of me sitting in my high school room with my thumb up trying to like line things up, I'm only allowed to choose from those ideas I look at that I've seen over and over and over again, enough to demonstrate that they are 99% or 100% reliable. So I'm definitely not going to come up with any fresh or new or genuinely surprising ideas. Luckily, there is a way around this, because we all know there's a big world of untried ideas out there. I'm very proud of my drawing. And this is the really good part. Several of them are every bit as reliable as you need them to be. The problem is we don't know during that planning phase which ones are going to be blinking red with my awesome keynote work that are going to be as reliable as we need, right? So what our band does is we try to put ourselves in a place without abstractly thinking of what those good and surprising and reliable ideas might be. We just try to come up with a place where there will be a whole lot of untried ideas, which we like to think of as our sandbox. And the idea is not to then think of which ones of those are going to be reliable, but rather we just spend a bunch of our resources to get ourselves into the sandbox. It's because once we're in there, if we can do the thing that I'm used to doing, just kind of trying to get those things to line up around you, then we hope that the process will reveal to us not only which ideas are surprising, but which ones are surprisingly reliable. So I realize I've gotten really abstract here. So here are some of the things we have started videos with, like let's do optical illusions. Here's another one from that video. Or let's dance on a moving surface. Or let's toast bread with a laser cutter. Or, of course, let's do a dance in zero gravity. But then instead of making this video by trying to choreograph that from the ground, we actually spent a third of the budget for that getting in a real vomit comet and bouncing off the walls for a week. In fact, let me go back to that vomit comet for a second, because notice that that's the official cosmonaut training center also. So I think we started the Russia problem. We were outside of Moscow, and we literally did this for a week. Now, it seemed like if you could look at this as testing. I mean, like most people would put this in the sort of R&D. Oh, you're just testing your idea. But the key thing is here that we don't actually have an idea to be testing. Like in this photo, nobody knows what they're doing. We're just hurling ourselves around. And that's important, because what we want to do is get the idea space around us to be every bit as chaotic and full of possibilities as that room. If you're able to be fascinated by something and learn something about it and make that part of your productive vocabulary, such that you know how to solve that problem now, your art gets better, and your science gets better, and your religion gets better, and your society gets better. And so that if we are able to contribute to that in some small way, I'd be really psyched. Thank you, everyone.